Welcome to the Personal Injury Law Show, viewers. My name's Tony Carbone, personal injury lawyer of many years' experience. Next to me, I've got Nunzio Tortilla, one of the youngest partners in a personal injury law firm. Good evening, Nunz.
Good evening, Tony. How are you?
And I've got an up-and-coming superstar, Alice O'Kane. How are you, Alice?
Fine, thanks, Tony. And yourself?
Very good, very good. Now, what's in the news tonight is the number of incidents involving students and also the elderly in care. We've got elderly people being injured. This story here, a woman left to die alone. She was in a toilet and they just left her there. She collapsed. She had a heart attack and died.
Completely unattended by staff.
Completely unattended. What do you think of that, Nunz? It's just...
It's sad, Tony, because it's becoming a widespread problem, unfortunately, in society. With the amount of aged care facilities around, it's a huge issue, and the neglect of old people is an issue.
And the thing is, it's being investigated at the moment, Alice.
That's right.
But there's not going to be a lot of evidence because she's in there alone. There's no cameras, there's no witnesses, so...
That's right. Not a lot of people to stick up for this poor woman, Tony. It's a shame.
And this is going to lead on to our topic tonight of under the care of, dealing with the elderly and students and pupils and people like that. Now, the other story is pupils suing over school bullying. A 7-year-old was bashed and kicked in her head by students at his school. He had to have CT scans. He's scared to go to school. He's so stressed and everything else. Alice?
Look, Tony, as you know, younger students are some of the most vulnerable people in society, and it can be really shocking what happens at school, and it can have long-lasting effects as well. So it's a real issue.
It's really bizarre to me because we had that incident involving a Smartie that was in the news back in April, where the fellow working at the airport, the cleaner, was assaulted by one of his supervisors. He had his head pushed down into the ground. Since then, there seems to have been an explosion in bullying and these sorts of cases, Nunzio. It's just people aren't aware of, or lack of training. I don't know what it is.
I agree, Tony said. I think that now is becoming a higher duty, and employers got to be aware that it's a big issue in society these days, and you just can't buck it. But with the pupil side of things, Tony, it makes it hard. How do you assess the damage? They're so young. How do you know they're going to...
Yeah, you can still wait, can't you, Alice?
That's right. You can wait. In terms of limitations under the law, Tony, they do have from 3 years from the time they turn 18 to legally do something about it, to make it really simple.
And also in your development years, you're getting kicked in the head and bashed. I mean, it doesn't do much for your self-esteem and, developing a personality, does it?
Not at all. But it is important that if there are issues at a young age, that you're put on notice straight away, because the longer you leave it, the harder it is.
That's right.
Anyway, look, this is just two examples of very, very many stories that I've picked up in the papers. But look, let's get on with the topic of tonight's discussion. We're talking about the children and the elderly. They're in the care of, they've got special needs. They can't look after themselves. So this is what the topic's about. Nursing homes. Alice, what's their role?
Look, Tony, nursing homes are really important. As we all know, the elderly require a really special type of care, and quite often they require a bit more care than we're able to give them if we're working full-time or if we have families of our own. And so nursing homes are really important because they provide that higher standard of care to our elderly people.
So it's not the families passing the buck, it's just that they don't have the time. They're working, they're looking after children.
That's right, that's right. They're a really important part of society.
The stats at the moment are as follows. People over the age of 65, 5% in specialised aged care accommodation. Is that a high number, Nunz, or is it starting to get higher because the population is ageing?
It's going to just gradually increase, Tony. I think those stats will go up as the years progress.
And these people, they're very vulnerable, aren't they? Because, I mean, they've got all sorts of problems with blood pressure and they've probably got diabetes and...
Special needs.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, some of the things that happen in these nursing homes, what are the injuries that we commonly see, Nunz?
A range of injuries ranges from dehydration, malnutrition, fractures, falls, a range of issues, and they're more susceptible to injury. So you have a higher degree of incidence. So it's difficult.
And the worst case is you've got quadriplegics.
That's right, and sometimes you can have things like serious infections and ongoing problems with things like feeding or things like personal care as well.
And you've got the blood clots in legs. There was a story in the paper recently about that.
That's right.
The lady that wasn't properly looked after. They didn't change the bandages, and you could actually see her bone. That's how bad the... and also you've got depression and anxiety and these sorts of things. Look, let's get to some of the cases. In Chan and Barker, you want to tell me about the facts of that case, Alice?
Yeah, look, Chan is a really interesting case, Tony. The facts are relatively straightforward. A lady was being transferred from a chair to a shower chair at a nursing home, by a carer, and she became unconscious. She fell into consciousness while she was being transferred, and she fell on the ground somehow while this was happening, and she became a quadriplegic because of the injuries that she sustained. And she now requires obviously a very high level of care. She's fed through a
24/7,
feeding
I think it
tube.
is,
That's
isn't it? Yeah.
right. Yes, that's right. She's unable to do anything for herself.
And
It's a very
Lucio,
sad
what
case.
happened to her? Did she win?
No, the court found against her and said that the carer for the nursing home did as much as he could have done. He was qualified, had the relevant qualifications, and couldn't have done more in the circumstance, which is sad because, as I said, it's such a dramatic injury.
That's right.
Don't you think that she lost because there was no evidence to support?
Look, Tony, it probably played a really big part. As you said before, look, it's rare to have things like video footage or witnesses to back these poor people up. And, you know, this lady's now quadriplegic. She's barely able to do anything. And we do require a very high standard of care from these nursing
What's the
homes.
law? What's the law when you deal with these people? What's the...
The law, when you deal with these people, they have what's called a non-delegable duty of care, which is basically a duty of care that applies to the nursing home to look after its residents. And non-delegable, Tony, means that you can't pass the care off to someone else.
You can't pass the buck.
That's right.
They
And-
accept responsibility for the actions of the employees in the organisation.
The sad thing about this case, I'm not really happy with the decision, but I guess the court can only make decisions based on the evidence before him. The only evidence would have been the carer. The
Yeah.
lady wouldn't have been able to give
At the
evidence.
same time, Tony, look, these carers do a great job, and I said it's sad that we put them in these situations because look, they are there to help the elderly and the young and all the disabled. And look,
But they do get complacent.
Look, I agree.
I
but
mean, you're doing the same job every day, Alice, and sometimes you might think, oh, here's another one, and,
Look, the
you can't
daily
be on your
grind
game
affects
all the
us
time.
all. That's right. The daily grind affects us all, but we must remember that we put our elderly people in the charge of these people, and we entrust them with their care. And so it really is important to demand a high standard.
Look, let's go back to the facts of this case. He says he's holding her. Is that correct? Am I wrong here?
That's what he
Yes.
says he was doing. He was holding her, doing the best he could, and he could not have foreseen her becoming unconscious.
She became unconscious. Why did she become unconscious? She diabetes. What was it?
I don't
Sugar
think it was-
levels,
I don't
blood
think it
pressure?
was actually proven.
Yes.
I said the facts of the case didn't really go into the reason why she became unconscious, which is the strange part of the case.
Shouldn't he have been diligent, hold on to her or something? She slipped out of her arms. I mean, what's that? It's like holding a
Suppose when you
baby,
lose
slip out of my
when you
arms.
lose consciousness, I think you become dead weight, obviously, and
That's
I
right.
think it can become difficult, Tony. So
I reckon they're lucky to get off the hook here. I think they should have gone down
we
in
agree
this
or
case.
disagree, I think, in this one.
What do you reckon, Alice? I mean,
Look, Tony, it'll always be impossible to know exactly what happened, and as you said, there's really only evidence of the carer, but it's a really tragic case.
it's scary to think that you put your family in these, or elderly in these institutions and they're not properly looked after. Viewers, please stay tuned. We're going to a sponsors break. We'll be back shortly.